If you're just joining us, this is Daybreak Africa, and we're broadcasting from the nation's capital, Abuja. Now let's get into the discussion. Successive Nigerian governments have made concerted efforts in economic and development planning in the bid to revamp the economy already battered by historical trajectory and orchestrated by maladministration. How much has been done so far and how well? Joining us now to look at the state of Nigeria's economy at 60 is Professor Ken Ike. He's an economist. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For inviting me. Thank you very much.
Right, so now 60 years after, are we economically independent? Because we're still largely dependent on imports in Nigeria.
Now, independence is a very relative term because we are part of a global economy. We are heavily absorbed into the global economy in two respects. The major earner of our foreign exchange, 90%, is oil, and there's a price determination that we have no control of, and it's all export related. Secondly, the financial sector is integrated. Capital market is integrated. So whatever happens in Japan affects Nigeria. So that those are two levels of integration. But then we have serious challenges. We really have. And I don't know where you want me to start. But if you are going to look at the future, then you need to be able to look at the past, how the past has shaped the future. In the early 60s, we had an agrarian economy, basically an agrarian economy. And this is consistent with the natural factor endowment of Nigeria. You know, we have an agroecological zone that sits purely on the equator. We have swamp forests, we have tropical forests, we have Guinea savanna, Sudan savanna, and Sahel savanna. We have every vegetation that you need in this world to produce. And Nigeria is actually one of the 5 countries in the world that produces more food than it requires. And it's the only one in Africa. But our predecessors did very well because we have plantations, farm plantations, in cocoa plantations, palm oil, you have granules. They talked about pyramids. But all of those were raw commodities that were exported. Now, the structure of the colonial link was such that even as they moved from UK to Europe, they wanted to hold 75 to 80% of our import, to hold it, which means that we were subjected to a system of exchange that made us producer of raw material and then consumer of the produce that they have. So they maintain monopoly of our market, our import market. Now, what then happened was that we did not improve because technology is what drives every country. In Nigeria, the technology for primary production of agriculture never upgraded.
Okay.
It never upgraded into mechanization, mechanized agriculture. It never upgraded into new seeds being produced to increase productivity. It never upgraded. In fact, the marketing boards that we had, we were aggregating the produce and delivering it to processing, was disbanded in 1993, following the IMF, when we were taking IMF loan. So we broke that link between primary production and processing. And that's the weakest link in our economy today. So what then happened is that even the food production for export, value chains like vegetable and all of that are now caught up into WTO rules for sanitary and phytosanitary measurement and all that, none of them was upgraded. So what we still have a rudimental agricultural production system that you want to export what they do, you can't enter the market. And that's why you have rejection notice over 50 and the suspended Nigerian export for more than 3 years. So the issue there is that the technology for agricultural primary production was not upgraded as we go along. The linkage between agriculture and processing was broken. Now let's come to industrialization. Industrialization, I had the industrial parks in Ikeja. We had in Aba, we had in Transamadi, Ahmadu Bello we had in Kaduna, and these were doing well. But the technology of the processing and manufacturing were not upgrading. Even at some point in the late 70s, we had car manufacture going on. Volkswagen was manufacturing. We had the assembling. We had Peugeot. In Enugu, we have Anamco, Mercedes. We have Leyland. And cars were, Volkswagen was being assembled, and they were 3,500 naira for Volks. The highest Peugeot was 5,000 naira. And that 5,000 naira is equivalent to 5,000 pounds because it was 1-to-1. And today, if you go to US, you are still buying them 5,000 pounds, 6,000 pounds. But here, you can multiply it. It's all in millions now. And spare parts were being made locally. The tires were being made by Udutola. We're producing most of the things. We did not improve the technology of processing. You would have had lathe machines in fabricating parts. You would have had computer-aided manufacture. You would have had artificial intelligence, robotics coming in to upgrade processing process. And we would have had to continue to export our cars to earn foreign exchange because we had the industrial base. Ghana has sent out 1,000 Jeeps to America, bought by America, assembled in Ghana. We could have been doing that even if Europe doesn't buy our cars. We would have been using AGOA from America, giving us 6,500 items, bring them in, free of duty, no quota. We can't exploit it. We would have used that to exploit all so that foreign exchange would be here. Rather, we depended on oil for all the foreign exchange. And then we opened the tap. When you opened the tap and began to give the foreign exchange to traders, they jumped into the weak link between primary production, agriculture, and processing, and started importing everything that is cheap from China and destroyed all the industries. The garment industry lost over 1.5 million people. And then all industrial graveyards that we are doing. And we produce cotton. We are the biggest producer of cotton in Africa. And we are consuming ginneries and all that, and garment industry gone. That link was broken. So, it's unbelievable what has happened to us. Then, you now have salt added to the injury, is that we allowed our borders open so that you can import it's not even import because they're not paying tax. They are dumping substandard goods through the border. They're bringing in smuggling goods. We don't get the revenue from small goods. The custom doesn't get the revenue. And they completely and utterly not only are injurious to the health of the nation when they're substandard, but they're also destroying the economy, the production process. And there are other issues around agriculture that I haven't mentioned because there is heavy exportation of raw food, which amounts to exporting your jobs. And then when you look at inflation that you can't arrest, what happens on inflation is that core inflation is around 11%, urban inflation 11%. Core inflation is 10%. Then because core excludes food. But then urban and rural inflation sub-index are all 11. But then the average is 13 because the agricultural sub-index is 15 plus. Agriculture is what is dragging the inflation. So there are many sides to the story of what has happened to agriculture. Now you come to trade. What has happened to trade is that we were bound by the trade agreements to Europeans. Now Nigeria refused to sign the economic partnership agreement a few years ago, which sort of exonerated us somehow. But China has taken over that ground with dumping, okay? Our trade policy in 2000, the last one was 2002. We wrote the one of 2012. It was never adopted by the FES because of the minister, what he was doing. Today, we're supposed to be revising it every 5 years. Today, we are sitting here without a trade policy. The last one was 2002. Now, trade policy is what shapes the way you do business with the outside world. So, now the last one, investment policy. Our investment policy, investment policy was targeting foreign direct investment. Yes, if you want foreign direct investment with all the incentives that go with it, infant industry protection, you have to give them the infrastructure for them to invest. We have paucity of infrastructure. We have the most shameful one is power. If you compare Nigeria to South Africa, we are 4 times their population, but they have 10 times more power than Nigeria. That is a factor of 40 times. So, which investors are you going to involve? And they look at the figures on the investor. In the last 5 years, it's going down like that. It's hit the ground. Then we now said, okay, let's use a high interest monetary policy to attract foreign portfolio investment. Yeah, they come because they're coming to reap high interest rate. Because the interest rate in UK and US may be about 3% or 2%, but here you get to 2%, 11%, very high interest rate. High. They come in on the basis that you would allow them to take their dollars when they want to take their dollars. So if somebody coughs or body language, the money will disappear overnight. So you really don't have much going on. All you have is that you have a high interest regime to support that kind of balancing of your forex. So the opportunity that we have to create revenue sources that will bring forex, as I said, the manufacturing stuff, cars and all that, has vaporized away. Everybody's hunting to get some dollar, and that dollar is coming from oil, and the oil revenues goes up and down. Production volume up and down. You've seen what everybody sees what goes on in the oil. So that's where our problem, that's where it lies. There is that disconnect, and then you have the structural. You can't finish this discussion without looking at the oil industry, because the oil industry is such a, oh God, I lack the word to describe what has happened to our industry. There's a structural rigidity and political economy that says, produce crude, take it away. The share that Nigeria gets from the oil, which is about 60%, you use that money to pay for this crude to travel abroad, you pay for it to be processed abroad, you pay for it to be brought back here, and the remaining change left, you use it to subsidize it. What kind of business is that? Then the refineries you have in the country are owned by government. What kind of business is that? Government is not in the business of doing business. It's creating regulatory environment. Okay? So where are the private sector? You gave us 75 licenses for modular refineries, and you can't give them loan. They are going to pay back. It's not free. It's not dash. It's not grant. So for how many years, since the years of Obasanjo, they are carrying these licenses and they can't start one refinery? Because none of the states in the Niger Delta has taken it upon themselves. Let's put 10% in this company and make it happen, and then it happens. And then when you take 1 trillion naira to subsidize petrol, it's $3 billion. These companies need only $100 million to refine 20,000 barrels a day. So the money you spend in a year subsidized could actually fund 30 of these refineries to start. Now you think you can put your faith on government-owned refineries. As long as people are having big tank farms in Lagos and all of that importing, they will kill that. They won't let that happen. So, and then you have politicians that give contracts and LPOs to people to go and buy spare parts for refinery and not the people who build the refinery. And then you have $250 million spare parts somewhere that doesn't fit into the group. You've created all the rooms for all the shenanigans going on.
So let me take you back on what you said about a border opening of our borders. With the fact that the borders have been closed for some time now, would you say it has had any impact, in the economy?
It had impact.
Okay.
Because the customs told us that since that period they were earning extra 5 billion naira a day from tax. That is what we were losing. I am not an apostle of border closure because it is not. Is a distortion. It's a trade distortion. But we can't support bringing in arms. And if you go to the theaters of war, Nigeria is a country at war. In the northeast is the Boko Haram. In the northwest is banditry. North central is a major clash of our two production systems, livestock and crop. And then in the whole of the southeast, southwest, have kidnapping going on. The women, look, 80% of primary food production, 80% plants are done by women. And 80% of the processing of cassava, gari, are done by women. And if you go to the market, 80% of the people who are on the road there in the market selling the things on the ground are women. Now, these women are not free to go to the farm to even harvest their crops because of what's going on with them. So, I think we're moving to a very dangerous end.
But many have the opinion that the government should have consolidated border security as opposed to shutting them up.
No, the thing is this. According to ECOWAS protocols, remember I'm from ECOWAS, according to our protocols, you're supposed to accompany that thing. We are all for trade. You see, there's free trade according to mass movement. There's free trade of produce, primary produce. They can move across the region without tax, without anything. And those primary produce are the raw grains and all that. So they have to go. We can't stop them. It is you who should put primary processing across everywhere to process. They let them buy the finished ones, all right? So we make money. Once it's processed, then tax comes in. If you want to avoid tax, then register your company under ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, ETLS. And there are rules of origin in there. You must demonstrate that it has minimum of 30% value addition. Not just bring something from China and then move it across the border to sell. No, that's not what it is about. We want to know where your factory is. Give us a breakdown of what goes into your destiny so that we can see that a lot of it is. You understand? So we have otherwise pay the duty at the border. So, but there are stories around what has gone on. So the goods come. The reason why they have to have the trade diversion, they prefer to go and clear the goods in Cotonou, is because our ports are very inefficient. We refuse to improve, to do the single window. We have national single window and regional single window. We can't implement regional single window until Nigeria has implemented. Others are ready. And what that means is the single window says you are guaranteed to remove your goods from the seaport within 24 hours. And if you're going to do it between 24 hours, it means that you would have, before you even put the thing in the ship to come, if it's from London, before you even put it on the ship, all documentations would have been cleared. You would have raised your Form M, you would have paid the thing that you need to pay, they would have approved it in UK, and then bomb back here, custom will approve, you pay all that you need to pay, then the goods start coming. All the places the goods will pass through, you will be on their manifest. Do you understand? So they know. So if it comes to the semi-border, they know, they're expecting it, it's on their manifest, they know, it comes and passes through. No issues. And for us in Nigeria, if we have collected the tax, we don't care where you are going, taking it to. That one's your business. If you like, I'll take it to Senegal and keep going through. We don't care. Because we've collected the money. But here we're not collecting anything. Because we haven't implemented. So for some reason, from 2010, we haven't implemented this single window. That will put everybody knows. Before you even put the thing in any ship, we are done. It's not done. But anyway, it's part of it. So what it means in effect happens is that the people, rather than sit for 2 weeks waiting to clear your thing in the port and paying demurrage and all of that, it's cheaper for them to go to where they can clear it in 1 day, 24 hours.
Right,
and then come through and then move it through the border. Incidentally, they are bringing more things through the border than legitimate goods.
All right. Sir, we know that over the years, different administrations have come up with different economic policies, but the problem has always been with proper implementation. How would you assess the economic policy of this present administration so far in terms of implementation?
Let me tell you. We have had several development plans. 1962 to 1968, okay. And all of them, since independence, keep talking about diversification. I've had it since I was born. But when you look down into this diversification agenda that is central to what they're all saying, what you find is that the diversification is, let's pay more attention to these exportable goods because they are part of our factor endowment, natural competitive advantage, and this and that. And then you keep going to Igbo market, you carry some stuff there, you think you can go and sell them in London, forgetting that it's a rule-based system now, trade. And there's a lot more on quality standards, sanitary and phytosanitary requirements, technical specifications, and then non-tariff barriers. They ignored all that. There is what we call quality infrastructure. You have to implement sound national and regional quality infrastructure so that the goods you produce will meet the demands of the market you are taking it to. Nobody talks about the market. They just can't grow anything they like, and then you think you can just carry it and go over there. You have to have seed selection. What seed do they? If you want to buy pineapple, which pineapple? If you want to buy pepper, which pepper? Is it cayenne pepper? Is it Scotch bonnet? Is it bell pepper? And even bell, which one? The green, the yellow, the gold, which one? What standard? So you have to rate. There are so many things. You have certification at the ground level, that is at the farm level. You have to be certified. You have to demonstrate that it's a pest-free area. Time will come and have a look, and then you also sign up to European good agricultural practice or any of the good agricultural practices. Then if you are going to process this thing you want to export, you have to sign up to HACCP, Hazard Analysis of Critical Control Point, or some of the manufacturing practices, good manufacturing practices, to show that you have the high hygiene staff, qualified staff that have certificates in hygiene and this and that safety, and that you have all this system to measure, to make sure you detect where there is likelihood of infection, and then what strategy you have. So you keep the records. A lot of records are being kept. Then for export, you have to make sure you are meeting sanitary and phytosanitary. Sanitary is to do with meat and fish products, to reduce the risk of infection. And then phytosanitary are plant products to ensure that pests, you are not going to import pests, export pests from here to another country and destroy their whole agroecology. That's what it is about. We just ignored all the system until you can just carry anything and then you go and sell it. And when you go there, they'll destroy even pests, for example. According to the EU 1999 Food Safety Act, over 80% of all known fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, insects are banned. And our people here are just applying anything. You don't know. But they are banned. And so when you bring anything, they will test and they will find that the banned substances are in there. And these are mainly organic substances like zinc-based, mercury-based, all those kind of things that I have in the pesticides and all that you spray on the crop.
There's a lot of awareness on that.
They cause cancer. They're carcinogenic. So
isn't it a big problem for these things to be still commonplace amongst Nigerians?
It is commonplace because we don't have the discipline of Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, South Africa. They are disciplined in applying this, in building this quality infrastructure, in having certified farms, certified producers. You know what I mean? We haven't got it. And then if you're looking at quality infrastructure, first of all, the certification. I've mentioned some of the certification. You have testing laboratories, because as you produce, you have to take, in any batch, you have to take a sample out, analyze it, and keep a sample there for 6 years. So that, because all these results are going to come in when you run into trouble abroad. Then you have metrology to standardize, keep calibrating the whatever you use to measure the weight and the volume. So that you cheat me. If you give me 900 ml instead of 1 liter, you said, you are cheating me by 10%. Do you understand? It got to be, you have to calibrate and maintain that. Then there are other quality standards, standardizations. Under what standard did you produce this product? What standard? If you don't have national standard, then you have to go for Codex, the international standard. You understand? So all of this, and then technical specifications. When you put a product, put it inside the container, there's a labeling requirements, how you label them. You have to use scientific INCI code, INCI code, and then you have to arrange the content in order of biggest one going to the smallest one. Do you understand? All these are required.
Yeah, but
what you use to package it has to meet the requirements. The packaging material, which is plastic or whatever, it has to meet minimum requirements. We're not abiding by this thing. That's not what we are doing. We're not doing this.
But with all these lapses in view now, experts have said that the nation lives above its means, and of course it borrows in a way that is not sustainable. Hence, there won't be any economic recovery anytime soon. Do you agree with this? And do you agree with
you're going to debt management. Now, look, when you come to macroeconomic policy, there's monetary policy side, and then there's fiscal policy side. Monetary policy is under central bank. There are challenges around the central bank, but we have a very robust central bank that is energizing the economy and fighting agriculture, fighting reckless import, and pouring intervention money into the system. And they have also reason to self-regulation because they've imbibed international best practices. So I'm going to have to excuse them because they are on the job, they are on the task. Where we have the biggest challenge is fiscal indiscipline. And fiscal indiscipline at the level of the central government, state governments, and local government. Under the fiscal, remember, collecting tax is part of the fiscal. You have customs and FIRS collecting money and all of that. Then, of course, you also have the requirements of Fiscal Responsibility Act that you have to be prudent, transparent, accountable, and then set up FRC, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, and then the states are adopting, only 15 have adopted. No. Anyway, if you don't adopt, they will wait for you when you want to borrow money. They'll tell you go and implement that. All right. Now, in the area of borrowing, which is debt sustainability, that law, FRA, that is Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, says that one, you should be borrowing for external purposes, for capital purposes. Not for the current revenue, not for the current activities. That's number one. Then number two, you have to borrow sensibly. So there needs to be something like debt sustainability test. Why is it trying to do that? To ensure that you don't compromise the ability of future generations. All right? And so there are debt ceilings. The first debt ceiling that was on the constitution is that no more than 3%. The deficit, government deficit should not be more than 3% of the GDP. Today, I think in the next budget it will be 3.6%. The last one, it was like 3.3%. So we are at the edge. But Nigeria has done very well. We've kept within that limit in the past. Right. Now, the law did not set the limit for domestic borrowing to GDP. It didn't set limit for external borrowing to GDP. It tells the president after 3 months should do that, and he has not done it since 2007. On the recommendation of the minister, and then of finance, and then of course the National Assembly is custodian. It hasn't been done. The impact of that is that people are borrowing. The states are borrowing, the federal is borrowing, both left and right, you know. And then where does our lamp? Even though conventionally the debt ceiling, you know, should be about 40% of your GDP, you know, rule of thumb, you know, what's the best practice. But we haven't reached that. So we still have headroom based on international best practice. But where the crunch comes is that the debt service you need, debt service, servicing just debt. It hasn't even come to capital. But the debt service, best practice says it should be within 40% of your revenue. Our own is over 50% of our revenue. And sometimes it goes up to 60% of the revenue. So that is where, and the central bank says, not central bank, World Bank says that by 2025, it might even go up to 75%, which means it leaves a very small margin of money for you to run the state, to build infrastructure, to pay salaries. Do you understand? So that's where the issue is, the real problem is, that the impact of this debt financing is beginning to make people feel the pressure.
All right, so as we wrap up now because of time, just in a few words, what will be your recommendations moving forward?
There are good things coming along, very good things. You had a week ago, CBN is moving power to the mass market. So which then means that we are going to see the end of the shenanigans going on in the power sector. While Siemens tries to do end-to-end intervention in power and take care of existing structures, me and you can now go and embrace the funding structure that CBN is rolling out to ensure that we can add 7.5 trillion naira to the power industry GDP. That's good news. You know, it means that we've seen the worst. The second good news is that the private sector, I think a recommendation has probably now gone through the Federal Executive Council, where the private sector wants to set up an infrastructure company, PLC, that will capitalize by 15 trillion naira, and then maybe take about $2 billion guarantee, sovereign guarantee, and then they are ready to do the business. So take over the 20 big infrastructure project that has been weighing the government down and run with it, so that government can be freed to focus on social inclusion, health, education, and working with state governments on agriculture, stuff like that. So I think those two are big time. And then, of course, there are changes going on in the oil industry in terms of the regulatory framework and organizational frameworks, which are going to release more resources to us. So some of those are good news with PIB going in there. So there are some good news.
So there's hope.
There's hope. Of course, there's hope. And there's hope. And I'm hoping that now I'm working on the National Development Plan, the 2021 to 2025, and then of course Agenda 2050. And I'm coordinating the digital economy, bioeconomy, science, technology, and innovation. And I can tell you that the big difference between Nigeria and other countries that are doing well is the extent to which they have allowed technology to shape and influence factors of production and means of exchange. And if you see, there are good signs, because we are beginning to allow technology to come in the financing industry. You have inclusion. You know, you have all kinds of things are going on now in the finance. That's why our finance is getting stronger. They're even growing when everybody's feeling behind. But we need more. So what we are trying to do is to bring technology, digital economy, bioeconomy, and science and technology and innovation to the center stage of national development planning.
Right.
So that's going to be transformational. And second thing is this. The thing that is missing across all development planning in the country is the failure to tackle the real change in the structure of the industry. What you have is that almost every country in the world has moved away from fossil fuel, fossil energy dependent economic development planning. They've moved to non-fossil and bioeconomy dependent planning and economic development. And what does that mean? What does that mean is this. We should be focusing on using bioethanol from cassava. We're the biggest producer of cassava in the world to replace. So if you look at our industries are still dependent on fossil energy. If you look at even the oil, the power sector is still dependent on the fossil fuel. You come to the transportation, they're still using petrol and gas. We want to replace all that with bioresources.
We need to move from that.
Definitely.
That's why we need to move.
Thank you very much for coming on the program, Professor
Appreciate
Kenike. It was really nice having you on the program this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, this is still Daybreak Africa, and we'll be back after this break. To stay with us.